Okay, you saucy animals, let's talk about inflation. Literally my favorite topic. Why? Because, see this very funny meme that I found? I laughed so much when I saw this. You ready? So, people who are like, yay, I'm so good at property investing. And then I'm like, no, you're not. It's just inflation that's doing the lifting for you. And you don't even know the scam that we are all living in. So that is what today is about, is understanding the most important sentence you could understand about money. Most important sentence ever, are you ready, is debt is irrelevant with inflation. Debt is irrelevant with inflation. What the fuck does that mean, Olivia? Hopefully today I can sort of like drive it home and explain it a little bit. And I'm going to give a bunch of different scenarios today as well. So I want to put a bit of a preface out there in my belief system. The reason why I'm doing this is because investing, down here, down the bottom, is no longer a nice to have. Investing is no longer about building more wealth for the average Australian. Investing now is a necessity. It's a necessity because we're getting poorer because of inflation, which I'm going to explain. So for me, and for probably 80% of the Aussies out there that come my way, who are not yet rich people, who are average everyday Australians just to try and improve their future, you're not really investing to get richer anymore. You're actually just investing to maintain your wealth so that you can maintain your lifestyle. That's what it's really about. Now, I don't want this video to be doom and gloom, but this is just the realistic direction as to where we have been heading for the last 40 years, and it gets worse and worse and worse and worse over time. Today, I'm going to be providing you a bunch of resources to go to as well, and hopefully some things for you to research outside of this. So where did my research start with this? The reason why I started with this research was because I wanted to understand. I had this kind of like knowing of like, okay, I just know that you get rich through property, but I didn't really understand why property keeps going up in Australia. And so through 2017 and 2019, before I started my real estate company, I went into this massive rabbit hole myself because I was stuck on maybe 4 or 5. I think it was my 4th property I was stuck on. Or my 3rd. It might have even been my 3rd. Because don't forget, I was just a poor person working at Optus in a call center, right? So I was below average income. So I wanted to understand, why was it that the bank stopped giving me the money? Why is it that my properties just keep going up? And then how do I get more? And what is this system of like inflation that people kept talking about? And why on earth do people get poorer? And why on earth do we get richer through real estate? That was the fundamentals of what I was trying to crack open. So I went on a rabbit hole for 2 years, and there's going to be some really cool tools that I'm going to highly recommend you research and look into today that literally took me 2-3 years just to find this sort of information. So you can thank me later on by sending me an email or commenting below and say, thank you for Olivia, this helped. Okay, so let's go through all of these little points here. So I'm going to go through them one by one. First of all, there's a thing called CPI. CPI is the way that the government used today to tell us what inflation is, even though that's not really inflation. So CPI is a bunch of goods in a bucket. They say, all right, this is the bucket of goods, and we're going to chuck all these in, and we're going to say that this is the average of how much things grow by or go up by. The biggest misconception about this is that CPI is not truly how much money they print. CPI is just them saying, okay, we're going to measure how much some of these items that we use go up. And the things that they decide to measure change all the time. It's a fucking scam. They don't tell us about this. Okay, so the things that they generally exclude, and they have excluded for many, many years, is oil, aka petrol to get you from A to B. Housing, so the prices of houses, aka the roof that we need to survive. And most fresh produce. Now you can have a look at the RBA website. It has all this listed. What is the actual true measurement of money printing? It's called the M1 or the M3 money supply. There's actually M0, M1, M2, M3. But for Australia's purposes and the most accurate one, M1 or M3 money supply. Now, this is the amount that the RBA have actually printed, which has been an average of 12% for the last 57 years, which is so sad because no one knows that. Everyone thinks that, oh, the government and the media talk about CPI, which is 2 to 3%. Not real. It's not how poor you're really getting. Wrong measurement. So from 2021 to 2025, the average inflation was actually 25%. This is why you felt a big, let's just say, downside to your overall wealth during that period, unless you had assets. So I'm going to round this back all to real estate in a minute because I don't feel like anyone else in Australia is doing this at the moment. Okay, so this means that your debt will disappear, aka it will become worthless as they print. So if I was to grab, this is why one of my points down here somewhere, is my goal is actually to obtain debt, aka somebody else's money, aka the bank's money. If I grab a hold of $10 million worth of debt and I did nothing with it, say for example, I just kept all the loans on interest only and I didn't pay down the principal at all, the system will literally advance me because that $10 million will just disappear, well, not technically disappear, it's deflate, or become worthless by 12% every year just by me working out how to hold on to it. And the best, most safest way to do that is real estate. Now, I'll talk about some other forms of investments in a minute, which is non-financial advice. And I should have said this on this video. None of this is non-financial advice. Go speak to someone else and get some proper financial advice. So, this is the other reason why paying off principal on debt and on mortgages is so silly. Very, very silly, because they're just going to continually to print it, which means that property is actually artificially propped up thanks to the printing scam. So when people are like, oh, property is going up, real estate's getting so much more expensive. No, it's not. It's just the money that you had to use because they printed more of it, the money that you're having to cough up, there's more of it so they can ask more from you. I'm going to give you a couple of analogies. Hopefully this helps with what inflation is. I'm going to use a McDonald's burger for a moment. You know how Macca's burger this day is, I don't know how much they are. Let's just call it $10 for a Big Mac. And back in the day, it used to be, when I was younger, I think it was like $3 for a Big Mac burger. It's not that that Big Mac burger got any better. In fact, it went down in quality, right? It's just because they put more money into the atmosphere, so they know they can ask more money from you to fund that thing. So it's your purchasing power. So your dollar that you have has reduced in its power. So now you have to cough up more. Hopefully that analogy lands. If it doesn't, I'm going to give you another one. You ready? Let's just say we're all on a stranded island. Okay. Landed on a stranded island. Let's just pretend you have let's just pretend you have 2 sticks. And let's pretend I have 5 tennis balls. Now, your 2 sticks, you could probably do something with it, such as those 2 sticks, you could probably, let's just say you could build a fire with it. And let's just say with my tennis balls, I can use my tennis, and I've got 5 of them. And let's just pretend I have, with those tennis balls, I can throw them up to a tree, for example, and knock down a bunch of bananas without me having to climb the tree. So therefore it saves my energy, and therefore it saves me from getting cuts and bruises all over me. Or I could, this is a little bit triggery, or I could throw it at an animal and knock them out, as an example, right? So I can collect some food by using it as a weapon. Okay, so now let's pretend there's a helicopter that flies over our island. And all of a sudden, this helicopter, actually, let me go back a step. Now, let's just say you're the person with the stick and I'm the person with the tennis balls. Now, you hold something that I don't have and I hold something that you don't have. But you have less of the thing that I have. So you can ask me for more. So let's just say I need your stick and I'll be like, okay, Fred, can I please have your stick? You're like, sure, here's 1, but I want 2 of your tennis balls, please. Because you know I have 5. Okay, so the thing that you have that's scarce, I now have to cough up more of my thing. Okay, now let's go back to what I was about to say. Let's pretend a helicopter's flying over the island, stranded island, and all of a sudden this helicopter drops a massive fucking bag of tennis balls. Massive. And let's just say we now, between us both, we fucking have a shitload of tennis balls. But let's just say I have 50 of those. Let's just say I got 60 of those tennis balls and you got 40 of those tennis balls. And I still now need another stick of yours. You can now request from me and say, no worries, I'll give you another stick. And let's just pretend you've got 3 more sticks, right? Now, you're scarce. You are scarce in terms of the thing that you have, but you know that I have more of my thing. So now you can turn around, sure, Olivia, you can have another stick, but now you're going to cough up fucking 20 of your tennis balls, please. Oh, no worries. I need the thing that you have. Yours is less scarce and I have more things and you know it. So here you go. That's basically inflation. Hopefully that meme makes sense. Okay, so let's go back to point number 4. So if your wage was to go up by 5%, you're actually still down by 7% factually in Australia. So all these people who are like, oh, like my wage, it went up 3%. I just got a 3% rise just because my employer has to keep up with CPI. Great, they're keeping up with CPI, but they're not really keeping up with the fucking M1 or M3 money supply. So therefore, you are getting poorer still. If your wage went up by 12%, but inflation was 12%, you're actually just breaking even. So this is exactly the reason why I tell people that debt is irrelevant with inflation, and the reason why paying down principal when you're being an active property investor is actually so silly. So silly. I'm going to let the game play it out. Now, this is for those who have a lot of time up their sleeve. So if you're in your 20s and your 30s and you don't really need your wealth until your late 40s or your 50s, like, fuck me, you're in a good position if you're acting now, because then you have compounding of inflation to benefit from. So those who have a long-term time horizon for their investing window are the people that will win the most out of this, for sure. Okay, so I'm going to give you another analogy to hopefully help with this. My grandparents, who bought a property in the 1960s in a place called Ringwood in Melbourne in the 1960s, is now worth $1.8 million. So let's just think about what $7,000 would have felt like to them back in the 1960s. That was a fucking big deal. That was a lot of debt. What's $7,000 today? Most people could probably save and get rid of that in 2 to 3 months if they needed to. That $7,000, let's pretend that's a mortgage. That's probably 2 months worth of rental income from one tenant in today's day. So it starts to feel like pocket change. And that's inevitably what's going to happen. Now, I do have videos. If you want to send me an email or comment below, I'll have my team send you a video, but I do have heaps of other video content on my YouTube channel for free on why the property market is also propped up in other ways, not just inflation. If you want to learn that, I would highly recommend scrolling through and having a look. So it's another reason why inflation is the hidden taxes. This is fucking critical. This is what the rich really understand. If they want more taxes, all they need to do is print money. Because don't forget the percentage that they take from us. They can turn around and say, oh, we've just reduced the percentage of taxes, but they just printed money and just caused inflation. So really, actually, they're still up. It's fucked. The whole system's rigged. I won't go into taxes. That's not for today's video. So from my perspective as an investor and what I teach my clients is, there's a quote that I lived by for many, many years. If you don't like something, change it. If you can't change it, accept it for what it is. And this is that particular scenario. We cannot change the inflationary world around us. It's called the Keynesian monetary system. We can't change it, you and I. But what we can do is learn to take advantage from the monetary or the investing assets that will benefit from it, and that is real estate. There's another one we'll talk about as well. So rather than me get angry about it, I educate it instead, I accept it for what it is, and I learn the game and how I can benefit from this big Ponzi scheme game. So when they print money, directly what impacts it or what benefits from it is property, because it's two birds with one stone. The rate of my property grows up, and then the rents also go up as well. Now, rents typically have about a 12-ish month lag behind purchase prices. So when they go and print money, this is typically the time, a general time frame based on what's happened in the past. So typically when they print money, and you would be able to probably relate to this if you remember between the years of 2020 to 2023. So what happens is they print money, and then, which, by the way, in 2020, they printed $1.1 trillion, which is the most amount of money they've ever printed in Australia. That's why you're probably feeling a little bit more poorer these days. So they printed $1.1 trillion. Then what happens is that money goes to places, and it doesn't go into everything evenly. It goes into real estate a lot, right? But it doesn't spread evenly. So then what happens with this money is all of a sudden there's like this short-term richness. It's where you're like, fuck yeah, I'm more rich. It's what a lot of people went through during 2021. Then what happens is very quickly after that, bang, the pain comes. Then what happens is you realize, oh, everything else around me is going up. It's not because it's going up, it's because the money that they printed usually 12 to 24 months ago is now starting to make everything go up. So usually they go print money. Oh, yeah, I'm feeling. Next step is, yeah, I'm feeling fucking rich. Second, and then third process to that is like, oh shit, now I'm feeling it. But here's the thing. If the cost of me to put petrol in my car, food on the table is becoming more expensive over here, well, at least I'm breaking even if I have property over here, because then at least my capital is going up and my rents are going up. Now, obviously, the more real estate and the more wealth that you have, the more you'll actually benefit. And rather than inflation hitting you at this rate and this pain, your property and your wealth could go up at that rate. So that's exactly the reason why, for me, my personal goal is to aim for heaps of debt, because I'm just going to allow the system just to print it, and then my debt will just go down and become worthless by 12%. How cool. Okay, what else did I want to mention? That's what I'm doing. So what are the things that can actually beat inflation? One is business. So if you're a person that owns your own business and you can control your numbers, you can control what you spend your money on, then you can put that up by more than 12%. You can put that on up to 20% on your prices and stay on top of it. But then you're just staying on top of it. But then you don't have a thing called leverage. So you need to have leverage inside your business to do that. Now, the best way to keep on top of inflation and to stay out of and to benefit from this scam is real estate. And the reason being is because it's not just your money in the game. The biggest reason is because of leverage, because you can borrow the bank's money and have their money benefit from it. That's the biggest reason why real estate is so fucking good, is because of that leverage. So I'll give you an example. Say I had $100,000 and I put $100,000 into shares, right? Shares don't even keep up with inflation, let alone have any other major benefits. So then let's talk about property. Well, at least with property, you can partner your money with somebody else's money. So rather than have your $100,000, you can have your $100,000 plus $500,000 of the bank's money. So therefore, you could now have a $600,000 asset that's going to benefit from inflation, and you're then going to compound somebody else's money, as well as all the tax benefits and blah, 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 right? And all the other fucking 100 million ways why real estate is so good. Now, the other thing I don't talk much about is Bitcoin. Again, non-financial advice. I'm not recommending you to put your money in there, and that's not what I'm recommending at all. I'm just telling you about it. So Bitcoin is the only other thing that can maintain your wealth. Now, real estate is the only thing that personally I feel comfortable at taking out debt against or leveraging against, because it's so safe. So factually, it is true that Australia, from a capital perspective, is the best country in order to build capital wealth. So I have a lot of friends in the crypto space, and they're like, it's going to beat inflation. I'm like, yes, you're right. It is, in my personal opinion, the second best place to put it if your money is not enough to buy real estate. So, not financial advice. So, Bitcoin is the only reason why, Bitcoin is the only other thing that I would put my money into if in order to at least just maintain my wealth and stay on top of inflation. This is not a Bitcoin course. I'm not going to go into it. I'd highly recommend you doing your research on why Bitcoin beats inflation because it's capped and it's scarce. That's why. Okay, number 15. What did I want to write here? Hyperinflation. Okay, so this is basically the vision of where I see it going without a time frame. I don't know it. I just to let you know the information of how I've gathered this over the years. I have followed somewhere between 30 to 50 global economists over the last 8 years. And then what I've done is over the last couple of years, I've worked out trends on who was right and who was accurate throughout that whole entire, I've been at it actually now for about 9 years. Who was right and who was more accurate and who didn't really get it right. And then what I've done is I've now narrowed it down to about, and then those who didn't get it right, they've now swapped their story or their belief systems to the ones that did get it right. And so now I just have narrowed it down to roughly about 6 amazing global economists that I learn from every day. So this is where that information's come from, just to let you know. So it's those global economists that I'm listening to. And then I'm able to obviously replicate that because I have a massive team of property data scientists behind me as well, who then back what happens in the property industry, specifically in Australia. So I'm backed with a lot of fucking team and a lot of extremely smart and intelligent people who are way more smarter than me. I just don't have a large vocabulary, so it's easy for me to translate this to you. Lucky for you, I didn't know how to spell or read when I was younger. Okay, so this is a rough indication as to what I believe the future is going to hold for us. Now, you should not use this as financial advice. You should not act upon this as if it's true because I don't know and I'm just guessing. But it's a pretty good fucking guess. Okay, and for me personally, I'm using this as my fear to drive me and to push me to wanting to build more wealth rapidly. Okay, with also having a balanced lifestyle at the same time because you could die tomorrow. All right, so what I believe is going to happen is they're going to print money. I'm filming this at the start of 2025, by the way. So what's going to happen is they'll put us into what we call quantitative easing, is where they'll like either A, print money, or B, they'll give us all these little stimmy packages, right? To make things easier. And stimulus packages could be either grants or they could make lending easier because they're always reducing lending policies as well. So just to make it easier for you to get a hold of the bank, more of the bank's money. So what I believe will happen is they'll slowly drip feed, bring interest rates down over the next couple of years. Then they'll bring out more stimulus packages, which will cause the next rate of inflation. Now, I do believe in Australia, I do believe we're not going to feel it as hard as other countries. We are lucky on that front. However, the next inflation, big poof of inflation, it's going to be worse because it always gets worse. And every time they print money, it is always much more worse than the previous year. And so think of it like this. Think of it as like them putting a Band-Aid on top of another Band-Aid on top of another Band-Aid. So if they printed this much last time, well, then this time they need to print this much. And the next time they need to print that much. And then they need to print way more than the time that they did before that. So the next round of inflation is going to be very, very good for, well, every time that they print money for inflation, it's very good for property investors, but it's very bad for those who don't have assets that are going to benefit from it. So back to where I think it's going to go. I think we're going to go interest rates coming down over a couple of years, then quantitative easing really fucking coming because that's a kind of a quantitative easing is them bringing down interest rates, and then they'll bring in more fucking stimulus packages, and then inflation will fucking come in again massively, worse than last time. Then I believe we'll be in a huge deflationary period. Then the next one is what I'm worried about. And usually these are now, they used to be 7 to 10 year cycles. They're now 5 to 7 year cycles. So get used to it. Every 5 to 7 years, this is what we're essentially going to feel and the process that we're going to go through. There's a thing called the 18-year economic cycle, and that's proving true to not be as relevant anymore, and it has not been 100% accurate. Anyway, so I'm not going to talk about that. It's another video for another conversation for another day. So after they bring down the interest rates, bring in more quantitative easing, then we'll have a deflationary period, and then I believe that we'll start to see hyperinflation. So I believe that we're going to see a huge hyperinflation in our lifetime, probably in the next somewhere between, I don't have exact glass ball, but somewhere between the next 7 to 12 year window, which is the thing that I am making sure that I am benefiting from it the most as possible without acting out of fear too much. Then what I believe that they'll then do is say, look, the system, it needs changing. So now to save yourself, you've got to go onto this controlled digital currency. And then they'll sell you to go as to why it's so much safer to go into this controlled digital currency so they can control every single little thing that you do, way more than what you and I are used to today. And you'll have to absolutely bow down to everything that they do and say that you have to do. Then, this is a very interesting topic. So, I don't know how long this window is, but I do then believe, because this has happened in other countries, there'll be this small window of opportunity. Now, I don't know how large this window of opportunity is going to be. Is it going to be 2 days, 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years? I don't know. But this is kind of the thing I'm so interested to see play out, but also the thing I'm semi-nervous about as well. So I'm making sure that I'm getting prepared in advance. So what I think is then going to happen is I think we'll have this small window where everything will be so fucking inflated to the point where I can then, I'll give you an example, sell off a quarter of one property and smash out and get rid of all the debt on every other property. And then move over to the controlled digital currency, which will be forced onto. So it's interesting. I'm planning personally for that to be an option, but I'm also not putting all my eggs in one basket, as if that is because it's a complete guess. So anyway, that's what a lot of the experts are saying is going to happen. Who knows if it does happen? It's an interesting game. It's an interesting movie to be a part of. We're on this train ride, and to wrap all this up, my last thing to you would be to say, be open to having your money belief systems being triggered. Be coachable. Watch out for your triggers during this time, your emotional triggers, and don't forget to build wealth with ease to get the highest ROI on life. That's where I'm going to sign off.